You know, I can't support Donald Trump, and I know a lot of Republicans that can't either, and that's the problem. This is why this is so important, that the delegates actually unbind and there's an opportunity to select another nominee.
That's one of the delegates to the upcoming Republican convention in Cleveland. Her name is Kendall Unruh, and you just heard her there. She is a leader in the so-called Delegates Unbound movement, trying to continue that push to let delegates vote their conscience. And, you know, there is yet another plan in the works. Anti-Trump activists have come up with their plan B if their efforts to stop Trump from receiving the nomination fail. The newest plan would change party bylaws to make it even clearer that the delegates, not the presidential nominee, make the decision on the vice presidential candidate. Changing the rules. Imagine that. For more on the story, we're pleased to be joined via Skype from Cleveland by Newsmax chief political columnist and White House correspondent John Gizzi. Brother Gizzi, there is the platform committee hard at work, but what are you hearing about proposed changes to the rules and the bylaws?
JD, the talk about trying to change the rules, in other words, give the team a fifth quarter, is very rampant over at the Huntington Convention Center. I heard it all day today. I've been hearing it for weeks before I got here. And let me just point out, this whole idea of last-minute changes, Teddy Roosevelt couldn't do it. Ted Kennedy couldn't do it. Ronald Reagan couldn't do it. And I dare say that all of these people who do not have a candidate other than the common denominator that they don't like Donald Trump aren't going to succeed either. There aren't the votes to it, and I believe every Republican from Chairman Reince Priebus on down knows full well that if you tamper with the rules at this stage in the game, you're going to have some angry people who voted to make Mr. Trump, like him or loathe him, the presumptive nominee for president.
So in your opinion, when all is said and done, the never-Trumpers just will not have the votes to change the rules?
No, they don't have the votes. I'm going to tell you what will happen. At the end of the week, the Rules Committee will meet, and there'll probably be an up or down vote. They will lose. Some will try to take it to the floor of the convention the following week, and there'll be a debate, and in all likelihood, it will lose on a voice vote. And as for the selection of the vice president, this was tried before, where Ronald Reagan and his supporters, in a last-ditch effort to defeat President Gerald Ford, used a rules change to force nominees for president or candidates for president to submit the names of their vice president before they themselves were put in nomination. And it lost narrowly, but it lost. And guess what? When Mr. Reagan became the certain nominee for president 4 years later, this idea was nowhere in sight.
All right, well, let's go to the phones because we've got a call. You're there in Cleveland. Our call this time around comes from Cincinnati. Joe is on the line. Hiya, Joe.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going okay. What is your take on the upcoming convention and these delegates who are talking about trying to stop Donald Trump?
You have to remind them when everybody was voting that look at the margins Trump won by when he was going against Kasich and Rubio. I mean, they were landslides. I mean, so you're saying 2/3 or more of the voters said we want Trump, and you have, what, they're going to go with a third that didn't want him?
All right, very good, Joe. Hey, one question before I let you go, Joe, if you're still there. Who is your pick for Trump's running mate? Do you have one? I may have lost Joe.
I might be.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I'm still here. I may be in the minority, but I like Trump's initial, what people liked about him is not being part of the establishment. So I'd like to see him run with that and just not don't go with Newt, but go with somebody that's not part of the process and part of the establishment.
All right. Very good, Joe. Thanks for your take tonight from Cincinnati. Hey, Brother Gizzi, let me ask you something about the situation there. We began the program with all the talk back on July 5th from the new Black Panther Party and the demonstration that's going to be a few blocks away on Saturday. Are you hearing concerns about security from the people you're talking to there right now?
I'm hearing awareness of it, JD, The delegates certainly know about this, and also the police presence here, with everyone from Cleveland's finest to state troopers from Ohio, who love to see, it seems, to ticket cars from Michigan that are here. They're all lined up and ready for any kind of disruption that's coming up. So I don't see a lot of concerns about this happening. The delegates and those who are reporting on them have confidence in the men and women in blue.
All right, let's go back to the phones. And from Dallas, Texas, Carol is on the line. Hi, Carol.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
I just wanted to say that I agree with everything Donald Trump is saying. Of course, we can go back to Obama and his speech, which he basically lied to the black people and the white people. He lied to everybody, and it's showing now.
All right,
If people
Carol.
would open their eyes, they would see the difference between the two men.
And Carol, while I have you on the line, I just have to ask you, what are your friends and neighbors saying? How did you react to that awful situation that developed the other night and the killing of the 5 officers?
Oh, everybody's outraged. And the funny part is all these polls that are showing up, nobody's ever called me or anybody I know, and they're all for Trump. Everybody I talk to is for Trump.
Well, that's why we were pleased to have you on tonight, Carol, and we thank you very much for the call. As we see some of the footage from late last week in Dallas, John Gizzi, a student of political history you are, and Donald Trump said something today that evoked memories of 1968 when he said today in Virginia, quote, "I am the law and order candidate."
Oh, I think that very much invokes the spirit of the 60s, and our occasional guest, Pat Buchanan, in his book, The Greatest Comeback about Richard Nixon, said that the issue of law and order and the breakdown of the social order were key to Mr. Nixon's dramatic comeback that year. And also the fact that the Democratic National Convention seemed to feature, in Theodore White's words, the nomination of a man within blood because of the violence in the streets of Chicago was probably sealing the fate of the Democratic Party that year.
All right, let's take another call. Let's go way out west to Medford, Oregon for Tamara. Hi, Tamara.
Hi there. Actually, it's Pamela.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Pamela. Excuse me. Okay,
You got it.
I got it straight. Now I got it. Go right ahead, ma'am.
Well, as a brand new Republican, basically because of Donald Trump, I've had a couple incidents that have been kind of surprising and disappointing. A couple times the Republican National Convention has called, requesting a donation. The minute I tell them that until they get behind our candidate, and I know they're behind our candidate, I'm going to make my donations directly to Donald, and guess what? They hang up.
Yeah, those telemarketers, they can be a scourge even if they say they're GOPers. Hey, just one note, knowing that you're a, quote, new Republican there in Medford, Oregon, Pamela, Oregon hasn't exactly been GOP territory in recent years.
No, it hasn't. Largely independent.
And what are you hearing from your neighbors? Still a big group of supporters for Hillary, or folks coming to Trump?
No, I think that people will vote for Donald Trump. I think that probably because it has been largely Democratic or independent, I think people are just kind of holding their vote close to their heart.
All right, very good, Pamela. Listen, I thank you very much for your insights. And John Gizzi, I guess we'll have to bring Pamela back one night when time permits and talk about that whole vote by mail thing that they do now in Oregon and Washington. I kind of go, it may be convenient, but to me it opens up some possibilities for, shall we say, some tampering. But be that as it may, lots going on this week, and we look forward to having you back to tell us about what's happening at the convention and also to talk with some of my old pals. I think tomorrow night we get to hear from my Ways and Means colleague, now the chairman of that committee, Kevin Brady. So, Brother Gizzi, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. And speaking of tomorrow night, we'll be looking for you right here at 8 o'clock Eastern and again at 8 Pacific. Till then, stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.